He slammed his palm on the dinner table so hard that the plates rattled. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" His voice shook the room, but what shook me more were the eyes, every single one of them staring at me like I had committed the ultimate betrayal. I didn't scream back. I didn't cry. I just sat there and said the one thing I'd been holding in for years. "I don't owe this family anything." Hey everyone, welcome back to HD Reddit Stories. Tell me this, have you ever been called selfish for choosing yourself over a family that only takes from you? For walking away from a bond that suffocates more than it supports? Because that's what happened to me, and today, I'm going to tell you how it all fell apart, and how I finally broke free. But before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, especially if you've ever felt like the black sheep just for setting boundaries. Trust me, you're not alone. Now, back to that table. My dad glared at me like I was a stranger. My mom looked like she wanted to cry, but not for me. For the illusion of control slipping through her fingers. My older brother rolled his eyes, probably calculating how much money he wouldn't be getting now that I'd said no. That night, I learned something important. When you stop playing the role they've written for you, they act like you've burned the entire script. But here's the thing, I was never supposed to be the martyr. I just didn't realize it until much later. That dinner wasn't just another family fight. It was the moment everything snapped, the moment I realized love should never come with a ledger. They didn't just want my help. They expected my sacrifice. I think the first crack in me started when I was 10 years old, sitting quietly on the living room floor while my older brother, Jason, threw a tantrum about not getting a new bike. I had wanted one too, but I never said anything. My dad handed him a crisp $100 bill and looked at me like I should be proud of being the good one. That was the moment I learned that silence, sacrifice, and being low maintenance were rewarded with neglect. My family didn't mean to break me. But they did it one small request at a time. By the time I was 16, I was helping mom with bills using money I made from tutoring after school. At 18, I skipped the university I dreamed of, one that offered me a partial scholarship out of state, because they needed me close. Jason had dropped out of college by then. He had a baby on the way and no job. I became the babysitter, the extra income, the emotional cushion. Every time they said, "You're the strong one," it felt less like a compliment and more like a sentence. Like I was being cast in a role I hadn't auditioned for, but somehow couldn't quit. I put off everything, relationships, travel, even my own apartment, because Jason needs you, your mom is overwhelmed, your father's business isn't doing well. So I worked 2 jobs. I paid off Jason's overdue rent twice. I helped cover my dad's medical bills when he didn't want to report them to insurance. I stayed up nights doing freelance work just to make sure my family wouldn't fall apart. What they called love, I now know was obligation disguised as affection. If I ever said no, they'd act like I'd murdered someone. The guilt was weaponized with precision. My mom's tears. My dad's disappointed silence. Jason's passive-aggressive jokes about how I was too good to help family now. I began to dread family dinners because they felt more like court hearings. Every word I said would be judged, every action weighed against what I hadn't done for them yet. And yet I kept showing up. I kept helping. Because some twisted part of me still hoped they'd see me as a daughter and not a utility. But then came the final straw. Jason had racked up nearly 60 grand in debt from a failed business venture that was little more than a pyramid scheme. My parents didn't lecture him. They didn't cut him off. They turned to me. "Maybe you can co-sign a loan," Dad said calmly over breakfast one morning. "Just until he gets back on his feet." I laughed. Out loud. For the first time in years, I actually laughed at one of their requests. "Are you serious?" I asked. Jason shrugged. "Come on, you've always helped. Why not now?" That moment, his shrug, that casual entitlement, it broke something inside me. I said no. Not maybe. Not let me think about it. Just no. My mother's eyes filled with tears. My dad stiffened. Jason looked like I had betrayed the family. "You think you're better than us now?" Dad said slowly. And that's when I realized, they didn't love me for who I was. They loved me for what I could do. I moved out 3 weeks later. No dramatic speech. No flaming argument. Just a quiet, clean exit. I found a tiny studio apartment, and took only what I had bought myself. I left a note that said, "I need to live my own life. Please respect that. Of course, they didn't. The texts came fast. First concerned. Then demanding. Then accusatory. How could you? We're your family. Jason's your brother. I blocked them. I cried in that studio apartment every night for a month. Not because I missed them, but because it hurt to realize that I was only ever valuable to them when I was giving. I started to see the patterns more clearly. The subtle ways they manipulated me into silence. The way they framed their chaos as my responsibility. I thought of every cancelled vacation, every skipped date, every dream I shelved so someone else could survive. And for what? I was never the daughter. I was the fallback plan. The emergency fund. The therapist. The babysitter. The guarantor. One evening, months after moving out, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. It was my mom. She was crying. I just don't understand why you're doing this to us, she said. Doing what? I asked. Abandoning us. Jason's falling apart. Your father is stressed. You're our only hope. That's when it hit me. In their eyes, my boundaries were violence. My peace was betrayal. I'm not abandoning you, I said. I'm choosing me. And I hung up. That night, for the first time, I slept without nightmares. I didn't owe them anything. I never did. Rebuilding isn't as poetic as people make it sound. There were no epiphanies bathed in golden light, no background music swelling as I stepped into a new life. No. Rebuilding looked like budgeting meals down to the dollar, working 12-hour days, and crying in the shower so no one could hear. But for the first time in my life, the pain I felt was mine, and mine alone. I found work in digital consulting, nothing glamorous, but steady. I took courses online, built a portfolio from scratch, and cold emailed myself into my first few clients. Bit by bit I climbed. I got better. More confident. I upgraded my apartment. I opened a business account. I registered my own LLC. And then, suddenly, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was thriving. I remember the first time I made enough to cover my expenses and still had something left over. I sat there staring at my bank app for 10 minutes stunned. Not because I had money, but because it was mine. No one could guilt it out of me. No one could claim it. I didn't have to explain it. That realization was addicting. Fast forward 2 years, and my small consulting agency had 5 employees and a steady stream of clients. I wasn't rich, but I was secure. I had built a life from the ground up, with no handouts, and no family baggage chained to my ankle. But nothing stays quiet for long. They found me. It started with an email from Jason. No greeting, no apologies, just a link to a GoFundMe page with the subject line: Family Emergency. I didn't click it. Then came a voicemail from Dad. You've made something of yourself. We're proud of you. But Jason's in trouble again. We need to talk. It wasn't an invitation. It was an expectation. I ignored them. Then came the knock on my office door. It was Mom. How she found my office, I don't know. But there she was, in a blazer too big for her, looking tired and unfamiliar. We're not here to ask for charity, she said, handing me a folder. Inside were papers for a new business Jason wanted to start. A media company. Of course. He's learned from his mistakes, she whispered, as if that was a good enough reason to hand him thousands. He just needs a partner. I'm not a bank, I said. You'd have control, she added quickly. Majority stake. It's all in the papers. And it was. On the surface, it looked clean, clear partnership terms, majority voting rights, repayment clauses. But I'd learned from years of freelancing and business law webinars. Hidden in the fine print were clauses that gave them access to funds up front. No accountability until year 2. No recourse until year 3. A perfect scam, cloaked in family. But I didn't say no. I smiled. I'll think about it, I said. A week later, I returned the papers, with revisions. Jason would get the funding, but I'd hold the controlling interest in all assets tied to the venture, personal and business alike. If the company defaulted, I'd assume ownership of any property, IP, and collateral listed under their names. It was ruthless. But it was also fair, by their own terms. They didn't read it. They just signed. I transferred the first and only installment, $50,000. Not a penny more. Then I waited. It took 6 months. The company folded. They burned through the cash on equipment, flashy branding, and overpriced office space, and of course, Jason's networking trips to LA. When the dust settled, they came crawling back. You set us up, Jason hissed during a meeting I called. No, I said calmly. You set yourselves up. I just held the pen. Dad slammed his fist on the table, echoing that dinner years ago. We're family. I nodded. Which is why I gave you the chance. Within weeks, I executed the contract. I claimed the assets, small as they were, and leveraged them into a new creative division for my firm. I also took possession of the commercial unit that had been leased under Mom's name. She hadn't realized she'd signed it away. She cried when I had the locks changed. People say revenge is a dish best served cold. But I wasn't out for revenge. I was reclaiming my peace. They wanted to use my name, my effort, and my success to fix their mess. They didn't care about me, only what I could provide. Again. But this time, I had the power. I had the paperwork. I had the receipts. And I wasn't afraid to use them. I started getting messages, extended family, distant cousins, asking why I was destroying the people who raised me. I didn't answer. Because I wasn't destroying anything. I was enforcing a boundary written in ink and notarized. They had treated me like a resource for so long, they forgot I was a person with limits. The moment I stopped being useful, I became cruel in their eyes. That's fine. Let them talk. Let them scream. I bought the floor they once stood on and turned it into my foundation. When the final letter arrived, I almost didn't open it. It came in a plain white envelope with my father's shaky handwriting on the front. Just my name, no. Dear. No. To. No. Daughter. For some reason, that made me hesitate. I sat with it on my desk for 2 days before finally slicing it open. Inside, the paper was thin, folded twice, and smelled faintly like old books and coffee. You were always the smart one. Maybe too smart for your own good. I didn't understand you when you were younger. I only saw what I needed from you. I don't know if this makes anything better. But I'm sorry. Dad. No grand apology. No epiphany. Just a man finally realizing that he treated his daughter like a tool instead of a human being. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. I just exhaled. There was a time I would have done anything to hear those words. But now, they felt like a receipt from a store I no longer shopped at. I didn't respond. After everything that had happened, the contracts, the fallout, the business collapse, I had nothing left to give them. And I finally understood that it wasn't cruel to walk away. It was necessary. Jason never reached out again. The last I heard, he moved to another city and tried to start a podcast about entrepreneurship. Fitting. My mother sent me a birthday card one year. It wasn't signed. Just a card with a sunflower on the front and the words, "Thinking of you." I never knew if she meant it as an olive branch or a guilt trip. Maybe both. I didn't reply to that either. In the silence that followed, I built a life. A real life. I hired better staff, expanded my agency into 3 cities, and took time off when I needed to. I went to therapy. I traveled alone, then with friends. I hosted small dinners where no one yelled or demanded anything. I adopted a dog named Finch who listens better than most people I know. I started volunteering at a local nonprofit that helps young adults aging out of the foster system, kids with no safety net, no backup plan. I taught them everything I had to learn the hard way: how to build credit, read a lease, negotiate a salary, set boundaries. Sometimes they asked me, "Where's your family?" And I just smile and say, "I'm building a new one." Because family isn't blood. It's not obligation. It's not guilt. It's the people who see you as a whole person, not a lifeline. There were moments, quiet ones, when the grief would sneak in. Like when I saw a father and daughter laughing at a cafe, or when my friend got a surprise birthday video from her entire extended family. I'd feel that pang of loss, of what could have been. But then I'd remember what I gained. I had peace. I had freedom. And I had me. Sometimes, in the stillness of my apartment, I'd replay those last few years in my mind and feel disbelief. That I actually did it. That I walked away, stayed away, and rebuilt from nothing. Not everyone gets that chance. So I honor it. Every day. I honor it by choosing peace over chaos. by protecting my boundaries like sacred ground, by loving myself louder than their silence ever was. And every now and then, when someone tries to guilt me into bending, into breaking, into becoming the old version of me, the one who said yes, just to keep the peace, I remember the night it all changed. The night my father yelled across the table. The night I looked at the people who raised me and said, I don't owe this family anything. And I still don't. Because love should never come with a price tag. Family should protect you, not own you. Walking away from your own family feels like tearing off a limb. It's not clean. It doesn't heal quickly. And no matter how justified you are, the world often sees you as the villain. But here's the truth no one tells you: just because someone shares your DNA doesn't mean they deserve access to your life. For years, I believed that being the good daughter meant endless giving. I thought love was proven through sacrifice, that family always came first, even when it came at my own expense. I believed that saying no made me cold, that setting boundaries made me cruel. But all it did was make me exhausted, resentful, and invisible in my own life. I learned the hard way that some families don't love you, they use you. And when your usefulness ends, so does their affection. It's a bitter truth to accept. But it's also liberating. The moment I stopped trying to earn their approval, everything changed. I stopped shrinking to fit their version of me. I stopped apologizing for wanting peace. I stopped justifying why I didn't want to throw my dreams under the bus to clean up someone else's mess. And in that space, beyond the guilt, beyond the grief, I found clarity. I learned that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks that you control. I learned that love isn't meant to drain you. It's meant to fill you up, to lift you, to make you feel safe, not obligated. I learned that saying no isn't betrayal. It's survival. And most importantly, I learned that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's sacred. Yes, it's painful to walk away. Yes, there will be lonely nights. Yes, you'll wonder if you did the right thing. But over time, as you heal, you'll realize something. Peace is louder than guilt. Joy is stronger than fear. And freedom is worth every ounce of pain it took to get there. So if you're someone who's been called ungrateful for putting yourself first, if you've been labeled the black sheep because you said enough is enough, if you've ever sat at a dinner table surrounded by people who only see your value when you're serving them, you're not alone. You're not broken. And you're not wrong. You're just finally free.